Hey guys, I'm Lee Taylor. That's the 2021 Volkswagen Golf 8, and this is a RightLane review. The people's car for many years has been the Golf. Under the radar styling, great dynamics, and a good price, the Golf has long been the benchmark, even globally outselling its greatest hits big brother, the Beetle. So now in its 8th generation, the Golf hopes to add a bit more technology and prepare the platform for the EV evolution. And this car is just that. It's the evolution of an already fantastic hatchback. But with cars like the i30 and the Mazda 3, can the Golf stay on top? So how's the Golf once you get it out and about? Well, it's a typical Golf, so it's great and easy to drive. It's pretty smooth around town. It's easy to see out of, easy to park thanks to really good park tech. Volkswagen's finally fixed the rear view camera so you can actually see pretty well out the back and the lines move with the car, as well as surround sensors. So this thing is pretty easy to get in and out of an urban environment. The suspension is subtle but not too mushy, so it's not, doesn't roll around too much, and overall just feels really at home. It's a typical Golf, so it's comfortable at nearly any speed, including high ones. So once you get out and press on it, it is not a sport hatchback per se, but it is a confident, competent German city car. So it doesn't feel out of place when you're going around corners, but if you want something a bit sharper, there is the R-Line model, which you can get a sport suspension in as well as dynamic chassis control. This car, being the Life model, is kind of a mid-range car, comes with a ton of tech, but it doesn't have anything sporting about it, so you only have one mode for driving. But speaking of tech, you get all the new safety tech with Volkswagen's IQ Drive, forward collision warning, rear collision warning, cross traffic alert, the new Smart Cruise system, all of those things, the things that really make driving this car easy around town and even out on the open road, and it's a comfortable place to be. And most people are going to use this car for commuting or for driving out to the countryside, or well, when we're allowed driving interstate. But at the moment, it's just a lovely car to be in day to day. So this particular car is running around on Volkswagen family's group of 1.4 liter TSI engines. So it's a 1.4 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged unit, making about 110 kilowatts and 250 newton meters of torque. Now it's a little bit down on something like the i30, but it's on par with like the Mazda 3. And this car is actually coupled up to the 8-speed traditional automatic, so torque converter automatic, that is in all the non-GTI, non-R model Golfs. And it's a really good transmission. I dare say it's smoother than the DCT gearbox around town, which is probably why they added it, but it's not quite as responsive as I would like. So if you're popping along and you throw your foot into it, it doesn't go down to the gear it needs quite as quickly as the dual clutch does, but you do trade off for a much smoother ride than the dual clutch gearbox. But we'll have the dual clutch back in the GTI, so I can't complain. Dynamically, the car is, as before, a typical Volkswagen Golf, so it feels competent. This Life model without the sport suspension is not quite as athletic as, say, the R-Line model or something like that, but it feels perfectly fine. You can chuck it in and out of quarters and it's good to go. And it's quite torquey with this 250 newton meters of torque, so it responds pretty well. It will spin up the tires on wet paint or something of that nature, mainly because it's got, typical all-season tires on it instead of a stickier performance tire, but that can be easily fixed with a trip to repairs if you so desire. But most people would just use this car every day, and it's not really designed to be a chuck it up the corner sort of car. So if you take all that into account, the Golf is another brilliant, well put together package. It's a well packaged, good driving family hatchback. Happy to spend some more time here, but can't wait for the GTI. So how's the interior on the new Golf 8? Well, to start with, this is a marked change in Volkswagen's interior design philosophy. The new layout is incredibly minimalistic, and the materials in typical Volkswagen fashion are high quality. You sit behind a nice Volkswagen Group wheel, and in front of you is the typical Volkswagen digital driver's display. This particular car has a couple of packs on it, which means you get Harman Kardon stereo as well as a full color heads-up display, a sunroof, and a couple of other options like these seats, for example, which are beautiful with this sort of suede insert. Throughout, the touch points are actually haptic, so controls for climate, park assist, your lights, infotainment unit controls, as well as the sunroof controls or haptic touch as well. The Discovery Pro infotainment system works pretty well for the most part, and it's Apple CarPlay and Android Auto capable, and you have a wireless charger down low. It is a bit funky sometimes. The gesture controls can act up, and if you rest your hand on the ledge here to adjust something, it'll actually make the haptic controls go off, but you kind of get used to it. In the middle is this sort of minimalistic transmission selector with the park and brake and all of those things. And it's a bit weird, it's a bit funky to use. The park button and the park brake just seem like regular buttons with the engine start button, nothing special. And it's got like a nubbin thing, which makes weird noises when you move it, but you know, you get used to it. Overall though, this is a typical Volkswagen cabin, which means it's incredibly comfortable, materials are high, and once you get used to some of the idiosyncrasies, it's a really lovely place to be. So how's life in the back of the Golf? Well, to start with, it's pretty typical Golf, so I have plenty of knee room, plenty of shoulder and headroom, and foot room's okay. I have a couple of vents for my own zone of climate control, as well as some USB-C points. The seat materials are nice and comfortable, and the same material as the front seat, so you kind of have this like suede effect thing going on. A couple of pockets for plenty of options for storage, including a smartphone and a cup holder and armrest sequence. So typical Golf, and it's a really nice place to be. So how's the boot in the back of the Golf? Well, to start with, there's plenty of usable space. You have a load floor that has two modes, a higher mode and a lower mode, depending on how tall your items are. Not to mention the load floor can also be held up out of place with a couple latches on the side. The seats fold down flat for bigger trips to IKEA or Bunnings, and there's a full-size spare underneath. So what's the tops, bottoms, and final verdict for the 2021 Volkswagen Golf 8? Well, on the bottom are a few niggly things that really just revolve around being on the inside of the car. One is that really funky little nubbin shifter thing that takes a bit of getting used to, and the haptic system, though beautiful and kind of cool, is a bit touchy, quite literally at times. And me personally, I would prefer a car with a little bit more punch, but I guess that's what the GTI is for. So what's on top for the Golf 8? Well, to start with, it's a typical Volkswagen, which means it's comfortable at nearly any speed and it's quite a competent driver. Not to mention that this Life model packs a ton of tech into a pretty good base price of just under $34,000, and it's a pretty heavy hitter. So what's my final verdict on the 2021 Volkswagen Golf 8? Well, in typical Golf fashion, it's a leader in its class and it feels fantastic out on the road. So if you're after a small car that's an evolution of an already great car, check out the brand new Golf.